to Turkey and Azerbaijan have been trending on social media in India after both the countries backed Pakistan following India's recent anti-terror operation Sindoor. Many travel companies have begun suspending bookings, while social media is flooded with calls to avoid visiting these nations. In fact, Make My Trip alone has said that it witnessed a decline in bookings to the two nations by 60% in the last 1 week. Cancellations have jumped nearly 250%. Turkey and Azerbaijan have drawn the anger of Indian users online after expressing support for Islamabad in the wake of the Indian Armed Forces' strikes on 9 terror camps in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir under Operation Sindoor on the 7th of May. We now have Manish Chand, CEO, Center for Global India Insights, now joining us on the broadcast. Manish Chand, thank you for being with us here on News9. It is not the first time that Turkey has gone against India multiple occasions, especially on the Kashmir issue. And I think the Indian public seems to have had enough of it.
Yeah, absolutely right. Turkey has its own foreign policy, its own stance. It sees Pakistan as a fellow Islamic country which needs to be supported. But this has become a major bone of contention between India and Turkey. Which otherwise have managed to keep economic relations afloat before this confrontation started between India and Pakistan. But you see, what has happened is that with this Operation Sindoor, it has sort of brought to the forefront who India's friends are, who India's adversaries are. So specifically on Kashmir, it has been a long-stated policy. Now, one can argue, in terms of foreign policy that every country had a right to pursue its own position on some of these issues.
But the fact of the matter is that India has been extremely supportive of Turkey all through and through. There's never been a case where India has gone against Turkey.
Yes, precisely. So, that Turkey has not been supportive of India, like you see, Turkey is a hot tourist destination. Tens of thousands of tourists go every day, bringing a lot of money, contributing to Turkish economy. We have given some large infrastructure projects. Mumbai airport, for example, is done by a Turkish company. All that is there, and there is still that has not been so far. One can see people's anger and outrage, which kind of is justified, because in this particular confrontation, Turkey went one step ahead. Of course, one thing is they supplied these drones much before this outbreak started, this latest bout of hostility and the terror attack. But what is surprising, I think what angered people, that of course there was a statement from Turkish Foreign Office about condemning the Pahalgam terror attack, but it was more like a ritualistic, anodyne. It seemed after that they were basically supporting Pakistan. And I think popular anger, I don't think we have taken this up at any official level so far, or maybe something has been conveyed. But the people of India have signaled that this is not on. We can't be bolstering a country economically with country which is totally insensitive or callous towards India's core interests.
Right.
And not only that, going all out. I mean, we know that Turkey and in this particular crisis has been constantly in touch with Pakistan.
Right.
So so it has brought out the true face, in some ways. Yeah.
And that's the reason why the Indian public is taking some decisive action, and travel agents across the board have pulled the plug on Turkey bookings. From Cox and Kings to Ixigo and Ease My Trip, travel agents across the board are putting a temporary hold on all new travel to Turkey. Let's now take a look at the broader picture. As far as the India-Turkey relations are concerned, India's imports is between 14 to 18 lakh tons of marble annually, with Turkey accounting for about 70% of the marble supply. The trade is estimated to be worth anywhere between 2,500 to 3,000 crore rupees. Fruit traders across Pune have completely halted the sale of Turkish apples instead turning to other countries for the imported variety. Turkey's tourism revenue, incidentally, reached an all-time high of over $61 billion last year in 2024, and that was an over 8% increase from the year before. Over 3 lakh Indian tourists contributed to that figure last year, a figure which could very likely dwindle to nothing this year. India's economic engagement with Turkey has acquired new momentum in the recent years, with considerable increase in India-Turkey trade, which crossed over $13.8 billion in the financial year 2022-2023. India's bilateral trade with Turkey last financial year 2023-24 stood at $10.4 billion. India's exports to Turkey was at over $6.5 billion, while it imported nearly $4 billion worth of Turkish goods. And that's the kind of trade relationship that India and Turkey have enjoyed in the recent past.
जैसे ही हमें पता चला कि टर्की और अजरबैजान इस लड़ाई में गलत साइड में खड़े, देखिए पाकिस्तान गलत है, ये बात प्रूव हो चुकी है दुनिया में। जो उनका यूएन डेजिग्नेटेड टेररिस्ट है, उसके फ्यूनरल पे पाकिस्तान की आर्मी के लोग, मिलिट्री के लोग खड़े, तो इससे साफ पता चलता है कि पाकिस्तान एक रोग नेशन है, एक टेररिस्ट को पनाह देने वाला नेशन है। उस नेशन को टर्की और अजरबैजान सपोर्ट करें, ड्रोन्स देकर, मनी देकर, ये बात एकदम क्लियर होती है कि हमें इन नेशंस के साथ काम नहीं करना चाहिए। और इसके लिए हमने एक ट्रैवल एडवाइजरी निकाली थी कि इन कंट्रीज में ट्रैवल नहीं करना चाहिए। वी वर द फर्स्ट वंस जिसने ये ट्रैवल एडवाइजरी निकाली थी। हमें बहुत खुशी है इस बात की कि हमें देखकर काफी सारी ट्रैवल एजेंसीज ने भी ये एडवाइजरी निकाली, और आज के टाइम में हमारे एफर्ट की वजह से बॉयकॉट टर्की, बॉयकॉट अजरबैजान ट्रेंड कर रहा है।
देखो, इसके जो पाकिस्तान के बीच में जो ये तनाव जो है ये बढ़ने से टर्की का उनका ड्रोन्स का यूज करना सेंटिमेंट्स के अगेंस्ट किया है हमारे ट्रैवल इंडस्ट्री के, बिकॉज हमें लगता है कि हमने टूरिज्म में इनकी बहुत हेल्प करी है, दोनों कंट्रीज की, अजरबैजान की भी और टर्की की भी। एंड स्पेशली कोविड के बाद तो हमने बहुत ज़्यादा इनको सपोर्ट किया। आज हम अजरबैजान में भी के 3rd के 4th लार्जेस्ट मार्केट हैं, बहुत कम फ़र्क से। और इवन इन टर्की हमारे लास्ट ईयर 2024 में 3,30,000 आदमी गया है, एंड इकोनॉमी में हमारा करीबन इंटायर ट्रेड का 4,000 करोड़ का इन्वेस्टमेंट है हमारी टर्की के साथ, बिकॉज हमारी इन्वेस्टमेंट बहुत ज़्यादा है। ट्रेड वैल्यू हमारी 90,000 करोड़ की है। तो आई थिंक ये सब देखते हुए जो लोगों के सेंटिमेंट हर्ट हुए हैं, उनको ये लगा कि हमको टर्की और अजरबैजान नहीं जाना चाहिए बिल्कुल भी, बिकॉज दैट्स वाई सारी बुकिंग्स कैंसिल होनी शुरू हो रही हैं। 50% बुकिंग्स कैंसिल हो गई हैं। बड़े बड़े जो हमारे टूर ऑपरेटर्स हैं उन्होंने सेल करना बंद कर दिया है।
We have Captain Akhilesh Saxena, defense and geopolitical expert, joining us. So we also have Manish Chand, CEO, Center for Global India Insights, continuing to be with us. Stay with us, Manish. Captain Akhilesh Saxena, we remember what happened with the Maldives, when the Maldives made some unwarranted remarks against India, all just because India wanted to develop its own Lakshadweep, and how that boycott from Indian tourists hit Maldives hard. Clearly, that's going to be the fate of both Turkey and Azerbaijan.
Yes. And I think, they have forgotten, these countries have forgotten that India has not only emerged as a global power, not only in terms of military, what we have seen just now, but we have also emerged as a global superpower in many other ways, right? We are the biggest market for the entire world. Nobody can ignore us. Indians are traveling across the world. They are using all the products, from different companies. And this power, if we realize and we start using it, it's going to have a great impact on the country. It's like, surgical strike. And if you really see, nobody can be, felt without getting impacted by the citizens of India. So, and every citizen, in my view, and I just want to, urge to from your channel to every Indian, that every citizen of India is a soldier if he intend to be. It's wherever you are, what impact you can make, but does nation comes first to you. It's always nation first for you. If you do that, I think we can defeat all our enemy. And the way Turkey has shown its true color, we have kind of helped Turkey during this crisis. India has sent a lot of aid. A lot of Indians are visiting Turkey, but this is what they have not even supported us for the UN seat. and now they have given these money which has come from the tourism and from many other parts of India, they have used against us. So I think the call for boycott is very clear, and it is also a message to other country that it is not only Indian army which is going to fight against you, it is 140 crores of Indian that you are going to fight against us. And this soft power, this purchasing power, this superpower what we have become is a very, very impactful, right? We cannot strike every country, but we can definitely hit that trade. And today, if we can hit that trade, if we can hit the economic condition, that country will come kneeling down to us. So I think the way Indians have responded is a
Right.
very good step and message to others also.
Yeah, message to not just Turkey and Azerbaijan, as rightly pointing out, Captain Akhilesh. It's a message to the world. Manish Chand, one is Indian tourists and Indians, the Indian citizens, joining the fight along with the India's armed forces. The other is the fact that look at the trade ties between India and Turkey. Look at how well they've been progressing in the recent past, and yet Turkey continues to align itself with Pakistan. And not to forget, Azerbaijan, a destination where Indians have recently taken a fancy to, where Azerbaijan would be helped a great deal with that. If more and more Indians travel to Azerbaijan and explore a new place like that, both these countries have literally, have committed harakiri by doing what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. The point is that you saw Prime Minister enunciating his new doctrine, the so-called Modi doctrine of combating cross-border terrorism of Pakistan, essentially, which is designed to make it costly for Pakistan, but also if you look at it, if you follow it from there, also make it costly for those who support Pakistan against India, and in using terror as an instrument of state policy by taking sides on an issue like Kashmir, which is essentially a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan. So what we are saying, I think there is a clear signal. The voices on the street are doing this. It is not the government which is doing it, but there is a spontaneous outpouring of anger. And you're right, the trade is an important tool in today's world, diplomacy, and Turkey is making a lot of money. But also, so this call for Turkish apples or Turkey's involvement, a lot of these products or in large infrastructure projects, we have to now take a call, just as we have done with China, that countries, we have to draw some red lines for our partners as well, that on these core issues, on these sensitive issues, if you do not, or if you take sides, then there will be cost. And this is what is emerging out of it. But also to be, take a more objective view going forward. When we are talking about, it's not Turkey which is alone making money in this entire transaction. Mind you, there is a trade surplus of more than $2 billion in India's favor. So economic ties downgraded will also impact India in some ways. The Indian people who are invested, Indian companies, Indian businessmen who are invested in Turkey. But this is a time where people are looking at things not from the prism. Everything cannot be transactional. We cannot allow countries supporting Pakistan, or which by extension means supporting terrorism, because that's very important to go on like this. So we have to take a call. We want trade. We'll punish. People will punish anyway. It's the consumer who's the king in today's market. So if people are not going to eat Turkish apples, the government is not saying that, but it will have cost, and the costs will become evident. Before this, there were no occasion like that. So now this crisis has shifted, separated India's friends from adversaries, and going similarly, Azerbaijan, Baku, they also need to know that in the name of so-called Ummah solidarity,
right,
or some Islamic cause, and they should not forget that India has more Muslims than
right,
either of these countries. We have 200 million Muslims, in fact, probably more than Pakistan. So
definitely more than Pakistan.
What gives them the, this arrogance or, this huge presumption to speak for the Muslims of the world, including
Absolutely.
the Muslims of India?
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Manish Chand, CEO, Center for Global India Insights, and Captain Akhilesh Saxena, defense and geopolitical expert. Thank you both of you gentlemen for weighing in and being with us here on the broadcast on News9. Meanwhile, the Federation of Western India Cine Employees has appealed to Indian film producers not to choose Turkey as a shooting destination or location. And here is why, and filmmakers are explaining why this is needed.
Federation of Western India Cine Employees, which is a mother body of nearly 35 crafts, have appealed to the entire industry to boycott Turkey and Azerbaijan for their support which they have shown to a terror nation called Pakistan, a country which believes in terrorism, which nurses terrorism, which has given birth to terrorism, and believes in continuously attacking their neighbor country called India. We have successfully given it back to them through Operation Sindoor. Our security forces have done a great job, and it becomes our duty to stand by our government and by the security forces. And we are quite sure that the entire industry will stand by us, will adhere to our appeal of boycotting Turkey and Azerbaijan, who have really benefited from our industry because we have been continuously shooting there and promoting them and their tourism. So we once again reiterate that we in the industry have announced a boycott to a terror supporter nation called Turkey.